Well, the moment was eyebrow-raising, to say the least. Former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton, saying almost nonchalantly that he was involved in several successful coup attempts overseas, alluding to one in particular in Venezuela. What we do know is that Donald Trump had and has strong America First views, and he had the distinct desire to remove our country from conflicts overseas as soon as possible. Mr. Bolton's comments raised plenty of questions about his own political past, not to mention that the comments have more than ruffled a few of the Venezuelans' feathers, to say the least. It's also a head-scratcher to me, and likely to call to many of our viewers that there's even a shade of a comparison of the events of January 6th with those violent shifts in power we've seen in other countries in recent years. Ambassador John Bolton joins us now to help answer some of those questions. Ambassador, welcome. Can I just stay on it? You know, I saw the interview, I was watching it live, and I was wanting Tapper to ask you, okay, so where were you involved in coup attempts? Do you care to elaborate?
Well, Venezuela is a good example. I wrote about it in my book. You know, this is something that that some of the snowflakes on the left really kind of were shocked at. But when you're looking out for America's best interest, you do what's necessary to protect those interests. So take the current threat of countries getting nuclear weapons or engaged in international terrorism like Iran and North Korea. To protect the United States against the threat of nuclear weapons, would a coup d'etat, would regime change against their governments be appropriate? I think the answer is entirely yes.
Okay, so you mentioned coup d'etat in the plural form. Can you tell us some of the others?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're looking for examples of what the United States has done over the years under presidents, Democratic and Republican alike.
Sir. I'm asking for you examples. You said you had been involved in coup d'etat in other places. So that.
Well, and as I said, right, as I said, I'm obviously not going to get into details. I did write about the Venezuela example.
No, but why are we not getting into details? That's what I want to do. I want to talk about the details, because I get Maduro, I get the whole Venezuelan thing, but I don't know where would you consider Iraq a coup d'etat?
No, I wouldn't consider Iraq a coup d'etat, although it had the effect of regime change, and I think that was the right thing to do, and I think George W. Bush pursued the right policy to protect America and its national interest. I'm not going to get into the others because the chapter on Venezuela went through a very rigorous pre-publication review process, as did my entire book, to make sure there's no classified information in it. So I'm not going to talk about it here without that.
I know, but you don't have to talk about specifics. You can tell us where the United States was involved in behind-the-scenes support for coup d'etat. I mean, as Ambassador, you and I see differently on foreign wars. You're much more in favor of them for the promotion of democracy. I won't put words in your mouth, but I'm against them. I hate losing blood and treasure for anything. I would love to know if America was involved behind the scenes in Libya. I would love to know if we were behind the scenes in, obviously in Iraq after. But what about January 6th? Was January 6th a coup d'etat?
Well, anyway, let's start with foreign wars to promote democracy. That's not what I'm in favor of. What I've been in favor of is a strong American foreign policy that says to our adversaries, don't try and take advantage of us.
How?
And I think that's consistent, as I've said.
So, Ambassador, you just said a very
the same way Ronald Reagan did it. The same way Ronald Reagan did it in a policy of peace through strength, with very strong defense establishment that deters our adversaries.
That's not a coup.
From even thinking about engaging
that's not working
in
behind the scenes.
Behavior.
That's not behind the scenes to support coup. That's a different. Of course, strength through power. We spend trillions of dollars on our defense. That's strength through power and through force. Yeah.
Just as the use of force can be justified on behalf of the United States to protect our interest, so can measures less than the use of force. And it goes back a long way. John Kennedy supported the Bay of Pigs invasion by Cuban dissidents.
That was different. That was different. They were lining the missiles up.
Why is that different?
Because it was 60 miles off our shore, Ambassador. It was 60 miles off our shore. It's a very different scenario. Was Afghanistan?
And that was a place where the Soviets wanted to put nuclear weapons.
Was Afghanistan, to get involved in Afghanistan, was that a good idea?
It absolutely was. We went after the Taliban that had given refuge to Osama bin Laden, and al-Qaeda. We overthrew the regime. What we failed to do in Afghanistan was go after al-Qaeda hard enough to crush them early. But was George W. Bush right in the aftermath of the terrorist attack on 9/11 to go into Afghanistan? Absolutely.
We spent 20 years, Ambassador. We spent more than $1 trillion there. We lost thousands upon thousands of lives.
And
the result is a Taliban that is reverting back to a 20-year-ago Taliban, maybe even partnering up with ISIS and al-Qaeda.
You can stop talking when you want to, Eric, and then maybe I'll talk. And the result of what we did in Afghanistan for more than 20 years is that no terrorist attacks were undertaken against the United States. That was a policy that was working. And now the Obama administration, which, Freudian slip, the Biden administration, which did exactly what Trump wanted to do by withdrawing, has had to admit to Congress that ISIS-K is already prepared to make a terrorist attack on the United States, and
of course
ISIS
they are. They can regroup.
Al-Qaeda will surely follow.
Now they can regroup. They have territory. Ambassador, I only have a couple of minutes here, and I'm already over my time. But January 6th.
A couple of minutes. Take all you want, Eric.
It's my side. My side of the wheel. January 6th. Was that insurrection? Oh, I'm trying to get an answer, but was that an insurrection? Was that a coup d'etat? Attempt.
No, it was the failed effort of Donald Trump to keep himself in office, and it was a stain on the history of our country. It was a big mistake, and I think he's permanently damaged his place in history, even among some of his strongest supporters.
Well, how is it, Donald Trump? How do you tie where's the link? How do you tie it to Donald Trump when a group of supporters walk across a mall and attack the Capitol? What do you know?
Well, I think they listened to the words of Donald Trump. You've heard them testify that they thought they were doing what he wanted. I mean, we'll see what people think. I think the performance of Donald Trump on January the 6th, which caused a considerable number of people in his administration, people who were loyal to him to the very end, even they couldn't take January the 6th.
So you're saying Trump is guilty of some sort of inciting a riot. Is that Ambassador Bolton saying that?
Look, the Marquis de Talleyrand, the great foreign minister of France, once said of something that was brought to his attention, he said, it's worse than a crime. It was a mistake. And that's what January the 6th was. That's what Donald Trump's involvement on January the 6th was. It was a big mistake.
All right. We'll leave it right there. He made a couple of mistakes, but I'm not sure that was one. Ambassador Bolton, good talking to you, my friend. Talk to you again soon.
That sounds good.